Desai found Henri Van Breda guilty on all 3 counts of murder of his parents and brother, as well as the attempted murder of his sister. Van Breda has also been found guilty of a 5th charge of obstruction of justice by the High Court in Cape Town. The brutal acts murders were committed in 2015 at the family's estate home at the Zalze Estates in the Western Cape. To talk to us more about this case, we now joined from our Cape Town studio by Julian Jansen. He is a journalist and, of course, an author of the book, The Zalze Murders. Julian, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Live.
Good morning.
Now, you were one of the first journalists on the scene there at the Zalze estate. What were your first impressions when you got there?
Yeah, we received the call this morning of an axe murder, and a family apparently wiped out by intruders with an axe. And at that time it was cucumber time. It was January. We didn't have much news, so we rushed to Zalze, and from there we would peruse the activity of the police going in and out. And through the course of the morning, we ascertained that about 3 members were wiped out, were killed by an axe, and then 2 siblings survived.
Yeah, but in terms of your impressions as a journalist when you got to the crime scene, what did you realize? Because we had the judge yesterday basically saying that it was unlikely that an intruder could have accessed the estate.
Yes, on day 1, the police already mentioned through my sources that the surviving son, Henri Van Breda, was a person of interest. And especially they mentioned his attitude during interrogation, and as well what come out very clearly at the first day was the police saying that his wounds were self-inflicted, and that created a big doubt on his probable involvement in the crime.
Mm-hmm. And of course, after your interaction with your sources and the police who've basically explained Van Breda's attitude and so on, let's just talk about your first thoughts, your first personal thoughts on Henri Van Breda himself.
Yes, Henri Van Breda is. I think what we couldn't get at the time, and what the state didn't use or felt needed to use in the case, is a psychological profile. And I think that is one thing that us as the media actually wanted to know at that time and during the course of the investigation and the trial, is what actually transpired in this young man's head. That he went on a path of self-destruction the moment that day that he went into the scullery, removed the axe and went up the stairs and just started attacking his brother viciously, and in the course of that minutes and wiped out nearly the whole family.
Yeah, and as I said that you followed this case very closely, did you at any point even think that Henri could have committed this crime? I mean, he's been described as someone very calm even throughout the trial for the past 3 years. Did you at any point think that he might have done it, or he could have done it?
Yes, as I've said, the police on day 1 and the media then obviously always knew that Henri was the perpetrator. And we was actually astounded when he rendered his statement in court. We got a copy of that beforehand, and even when his uncle, Bailey Van Breda, he mentioned to me, when he read the statement, he described it as a fairy tale.
Mm. And in your book, Julian, you were able to sort of include insider accounts of the Van Breda family and others. But it seems as if Henri's alleged drug use was the central point of this entire case. Talk to us about that.
Yes, drugs were never mentioned in the trial. The state council, I think they had a clear strategy on how to attack Henri or the accused in the trial. They didn't venture on his drug abuse, on his conduct towards the family and other members. And then they didn't need to go on that. It was only the media that actually followed the case and delved into it and discovered that he was a frequent drug user, and that he frequented a settlement named Kreefgat in Jamestown, where we would buy his drugs, and then also the domestic workers in the Zalze. Some of them actually accounted for when they engaged with Henri, the foul language that he actually used against them.
Mm-hmm. And we've also had Judge Siraj Desai, going through elements of the trial, saying that the axe which belonged to the family was the only murder weapon, and that no second axe was used in the murders. Van Breda's version of events, that the family had been attacked by a balaclava-clad axe-wielding intruder. How did you find the judge's terms of events in this entire case?
Yeah, Judge Desai is a seasoned judge, and he's very meticulous when he read out the judgment yesterday, and he painstakingly actually numbered the many flaws in Henri's statement and the many mistakes he did when he described what happened on the day.
Yeah, for the fact that also the judge also said that each piece of evidence on its own might not have been enough to convict Van Breda, but he said there were reasonable inferences that could have been drawn from this entire case, and of course coming to a conclusion that he is indeed guilty of the murder of his parents and his brother. It's still not clear from where we're sitting as to what could have been the cause for Van Breda to go about killing his family. Do you think we will ever know the truth and the reasons behind all of this?
Yes, the state didn't have to prove motive, but as a media person, and I think the media themselves, they are intrigued still to know what is the motive, what went on in Henri's head. And I think in the words of his own grandmother, Rika de Tweet, she mentioned to report on Saturday that Martin van Breda, Henri's father, at times was very aggressive towards Henri. Henri admitted in court he had a stuttering problem, and the response to Martin to that stuttered speech of Henri was very negative. And I myself am of the opinion that Henri, over time, it impacted on him psychologically. The father took away his money because his father and his mother knew that he used that to buy drugs. And I think over time, since he arrived here, August 2014, that encountered with the clashes with his parents, some of that witnessed by the care of Martin Locke, that was a neighbor, and rendering her actually into a nervous breakdown. That told us that over time it built up. Henri was a living time bomb. And on the 26th of January 2015, the neighbors, Ms. Stephanie Optoff, accounted for hearing raised voices, angry male voices emanating from the opposite house, the Van Breda family. So I think that actually, on that fateful night, Henri just grabbed the axe and he went berserk.
All right. So basically, the relationship that he had with his parents was not a good one. The relationship was strained. I'm adamant of that, and that needs to be researched as well. I think that is enough material for the media to go into and just get some peace of mind of what actually transpired in his mind and what was. Perhaps we can get a profile
profiler like Dr. Gerard Labeskagni to tell us what actually could have been the profile of Henri Van Breda.
All right. Do we know the whereabouts and perhaps the state of his sister Mali? Because we understand some reports were saying that she had actually lost her memory after this entire event.
Yeah, there was the urban legends that stated, people say, no, Marley and Henry was in cahoots with each other, but I vigorously doubt that. She is currently protected. She has a curator, Advocate Louise Beekman, who looks after interest, and the media is barred from actually contacting her and actually reporting on her well-being by a court order. And Beekman has to deliver another report to the court within a few weeks, and then they will decide if Marley, who is now, I think, turns 19 this year, 20, she will then decide if she still needs a curator.
Mm-hmm. But were you surprised as to how Henri carried himself throughout this entire trial from 2015? He's been very cool, calm and collected, and of course a journalist yesterday basically saying that he shown little or no remorse at all, or no emotions during when the judgment was read out.
Yes, for me, myself, I found it chilling actually to witness him. He came into court yesterday. He had this bewildered look in his eyes. He looked to me like an animal in a cage. He had the appearance of a stereotyped inmate. And I think maybe his legal team beforehand actually advised him, or informed him what the verdict, what the judgment could have been. He looked stern-faced. He didn't look around. At one time I thought he was closing his eyes, falling asleep, but he was very cool and collected. But that look in his eyes, that stance that he had there in his seat, will stay with me forever.
All right, Julian, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for coming through. Julian Jansen, he's a journalist and an author of the book, The Zalze Murders, of course, talking to us about the Henri Van Breda case. We're taking a quick break here on Morning Live. Don't go away.